to pay Nananoms outstanding quarterly allowances. We also demand economic sitting and traveling allowances to reflect present-day economic conditions. Mr. President, on behalf of Nanano, you are gladly welcome to Kumasi into the House. Thank you very much.
Revelation.
Kojo, they call it Abazounds.
Well, you know that government pays quarterly allowances to paramount chiefs.
Yes.
And I mean, and also pays paramount queen mothers. Now, the president of the National House of Chiefs is talking about economic rates. I mean, my understanding is that he's calling for the payment of economic rates. Around this time that the president talks about the government, all of us acknowledge the times in which we are. Must government be facilitating the travel allowance and all of that of chiefs?
Sitting allowances and travel
sitting
allowance.
allowance and all of that
Yeah.
of chiefs?
Well, it's a good question to ask, but I will say that it's not even about the times we are in. The richest countries in the world would always expect value for whatever money they spend. That is why they are rich. So what about us? If we are paying chiefs, what are we paying them for? And are we getting value? That is also an interesting conversation I would like to, hear our leaders answer questions on.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, talking about chiefs, I mean, I've been in several programs, for instance, where chiefs have even complained, okay, that the Constitution just recognizes them. So there's institution of the chieftaincy institution. Then you have the National House of Chiefs, you have Regional House of Chiefs, you have traditional councils. It talks about the role the chiefs may play in, under customary law. In fact, there have been some persons, lawyers included, who have challenged the rights of chiefs to even fine, their subjects. They've told them that courts must fine, not you.
Yeah.
Of course, and the other school of thought says, well, the chief, when he sits under customary law, he becomes the court to listen to all those challenges. But for me, could you make a point about the wealthy nations? Let's just say that in the past we have been giving them. But in this time, around this time, when the president has come to you to discuss issues about Galamsey, part of the problem is sitting allowance.
Maybe that's their
travel allowance.
They are also concerned,
No, but today we are faced with an existential threat. Our water bodies, and these chiefs are coming from, some of them come from mining areas.
Yeah.
The conversation should be about how to deal with Galamsey. Priority. The question is, what is the priority of our chiefs?
And could you have asked myself whether we are getting the approach wrong, whether it should be a down-top approach or up-down approach in dealing with this? Because you realize that this administration claims that they suffered some setbacks in electoral votes in terms of these mining areas. So maybe the approach might be wrong. Could it be a down-top approach where these chiefs are brought on board, and see how we can get things done? And that, for me, I'm still asking myself this question, that whether we are getting the approach wrong in terms of trying to deal with this Galamsey issue. Could you?
It's a good question, very good question. The president has been calling on the other side to depoliticize the fight against Galamsey, but he doesn't, miss the opportunity to talk about the political implications of fighting Galamsey.
But you should also lose sight of the fact that using someone as a scapegoat would also help a lot, because when people think that, when these so-called big people, who are the financiers? I mean, just like in the drug business, if you cut the small boys, you haven't done anything. Go behind and get those who are financing this thing.
Exactly.
And
But
that
you
would
see,
help because you can catch the small boys.
no,
and
no, but you see, why is it that there are certain jurisdictions where you cannot engage in galamsey? The chiefs have said, no, you will not do this on my land. When Nana Ansakwa was
So
here,
the chief has a great role to play.
the
in
chief
this.
has a great role.
Okay.
Okay, and so I was
So
expecting.
if they are being paid, can we attach some performance to this pay, like it is done everywhere else? Everybody else who is paid in this country, at least in theory, you are paid for performance, and if you
KPIs.
and if you don't perform,
KPIs for the chiefs.
yes, if you
the
don't
chief-
perform, if you
the
don't
chiefs
perform,
keep giving
performance
allowance.
in-
if
index,
you don't
right?
perform, then nobody will pay you. Nobody will hire you and give you money to fail.
Interesting.
You understand?
Yeah.
So if you are a chief and your responsibility is to be a trustee for your people and ensure that your environment is safe and preserve the laws and all that, and you fail, who should pay you?
Interesting, Kojo.
Anyway, let's see what's in the
Well,
papers.
in the papers, the finder has 1,801 killed in crashes in 9 months, and represents 17.8 decline over that of last year. But still, is interesting. These road crashes, we are losing lives. And Kojo, there's another story about BOG pushes for speedy conclusion of the IMF discussions to restore economic stability. The Graphic Times has, we can't pay ECG to PRC. I think it has to do with the sanctions or something. Also,
Yeah,
there's another.
the challenges that we've been facing. Is it ECG saying?
ECG saying that paying compensation to all customers.
Yes.
Maybe the keyword is all customers,
All
because we also heard in our news where they were saying that they are going to do some level of targeted compensation, maybe, but not for all customers. And that is where the MD Samuel Mahama is saying that we cannot do that for everyone. There's another story says, let's wage relentless fight against breast cancer. And that is NTC Managing Director, also Man 24, remanded for alleged murder of 70-year-old farmer. And also another story about BOG committed to financial inclusion agenda. And when I know one thing that will be of interest to you, if you go through the economic and financial data, I mean, the debt stock has hit 402 billion Ghana cedis. But one thing that would be of interest to you is its debt GDP ratio. Interestingly, it's dropped to 68%.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it would always drop to 68.
Because the economy has expanded, right?
Yes, the economy has expanded. But what also will be of interest to me is the classification of what constitutes our public debts.
Yeah. I think the problem has to do with the challenge as to what should constitute
Yes,
our
what should
public debt.
constitute
Because
our
I raised
public
this thing
debt.
because the World Bank Africa Pulse report was projecting that by the end of the year we could hit 104.
Yeah.
Now, if the economy should expand, that would be interesting where we end the year. Meaning that we might end the year not having that high debt to GDP ratio.
But George, the challenge has always been that the debt to GDP ratio is always calculated with end of year projected growth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're looking at a projected growth of by say 3.7% end of year.
Yeah.
As it stands now, we've used that to calculate the mid-year or by September debt to GDP ratio.
Yeah.
But the question is, what do we consider as public debts? Because that the IMF has been telling us that some of the things we had always considered as not part of our
SOEs,
public
debts,
debt
yeah.
should become part of our public debt.
I know Hydro and all of
And so,
these.
yes,
So I think it's very interesting, yeah.
Well, let's get to the Daily Graphic. Constituency Watcher says, Botiano English Yamanfro cries for roads and other development. Comes with a picture of, one of the roads in a deplorable state here. And, once I talk about roads, I cannot help but talk about my Oyarifa, Tem, and Abokobi roads. And I've always been calling on the MCE.
So one community,
Kakiman.
one third road.
Let's hope someone is listening this morning.
Well, the MCE must listen, because the people tell me on Friday there's going to be a massive demonstration against the government and the MCE because of the poor nature of the roads. But first, after trading, Ghana Tiles, Rwanda goods take lead. Good news. And Graphic Tertiary Business sends challenge KNUST crowned 2022 champions. Let me see. I have the Daily Statesman here quickly. Stop politics with cocoa pricing, cocoa board cautions, and cardiovascular diseases heighten in Ghana. And monetary policy rate increased to 24.5%. We need to protect children. That's the National Population Council.
All right, let's go online. The online review this morning is brought to us by Zenith Bank in your best interest, Goyle Good Energy, and Bigo Drink. And on myjoyonline.com this morning, Akufo-Addo's fight against illegal mining is a complete 419, according to Sami Jimfi. What else? Government using IMF as smokescreen to force its austerity budget on Ghanaians. Martin Amidu is the one saying this, and interesting logic. But you can read it. It's only 4 pages long, which makes me wonder whether Mr. Amidu was feeling as well as he normally does, because he should be expected to write more usually. Okay, Nanado hasn't repented. He'll continue shielding appointees doing galamsey. That's the NDC saying this in a headline on citynewsroom.com. On CNN this morning, UN Rights Council rejects debate on China's abuses in Xinjiang in a blow to the West. Well, find out more. Time now for the BBC News.
Brought to us by Fidelity Bank.